What if one of the most famous names in all of human history wasn't a surprise at all? What if it was predicted, kinda hidden in plain sight inside an ancient prophetic text centuries before the person was even born? Today, we're digging into a clue that seems to point directly to the name Jesus.
So that's the big question right there. Was the name Jesus actually foreseen and written down hundreds of years before the fact? Let's, you and I, put on our detective hats and start following the trail of evidence.
Okay, so our investigation is going to start way back, about 500 years before the Christian era, in the Hebrew Bible. We're going to open up the book of the prophet Zechariah, because in there, we find this very specific and honestly pretty unusual prophecy.
So this is it. This is our core piece of evidence. I want you to just picture the scene. God tells the prophet Zechariah to do something really dramatic, to stage a coronation. He's supposed to take a crown, put it on the head of the high priest, and then say these exact words about a mysterious figure called the branch.
So who or what is the branch? Now, this isn't just some random poetic word. Nope, it's a title. It's like a specific code word that was left in the text, and it's the key to unlocking this whole prophecy.
And when you look at the source texts, it's clear that the branch was a well-known messianic title. Throughout the Hebrew scriptures, it's used to talk about the promised deliverer, the one who would come from the royal line of King David and one day rule.
And look, this wasn't just a one-time thing. Other prophets, like Jeremiah here, they used the exact same term, the branch, to describe a future messianic king. So this confirms it. We are definitely on the trail of a prophecy about the Messiah.
And this is where we get to the most amazing part of the whole puzzle. You see, this prophecy wasn't just spoken into thin air. It was delivered to a real person who was standing right there. And his name? Well, his name is the central clue.
Remember, Zechariah was told to crown the high priest, who was serving at that time. And it's the high priest's name that takes this prophecy from just, interesting to absolutely mind-blowing.
So the high priest's name actually shows up in a couple of different ways in the Hebrew text. You've got the longer, more formal version, Yahushua, but then there's a shorter form that became more common over time, Yeshua. I want you to hang on to that name, Yeshua. And what's really fascinating is that we can actually trace how this name evolved through different historical texts. The book of Zechariah uses that longer form, Yehoshua. But then, the later book of Ezra, it talks about the exact same man and calls him Yeshua. And get this, the first-century historian Josephus, who wrote in Greek, also calls this guy Jesus. It's all the same name.
Okay, so let's put the pieces together. The prophecy says, here is the man whose name is the branch, and at that very moment, the prophet is physically pointing to a man named Yeshua. So the text isn't just giving a prophecy about the Messiah, it really looks like it's giving us his actual name.
Okay, but how in the world do we get from the Hebrew name Yeshua to the name Jesus, which everybody knows today? Well, it's not some mistake or a weird translation. It's actually a really well-documented linguistic journey. Let's follow the path. The path is pretty straightforward, really. First, the Hebrew Yeshua had to be written in Greek, which was the common language back then. But Greek doesn't have a sh sound, so it became Jesus. From there, it was picked up by Latin as ESVS, and then, finally, once the letter J became a thing in English, it turned into Jesus.
And here's something that's absolutely crucial to understand. This change wasn't made up later by Christians to fit a narrative. The shift from the Hebrew Yeshua to the Greek Isosius happened way back, around 300 BCE, when the Hebrew Bible was first translated into Greek. We're talking centuries before Jesus of Nazareth was even born.
But wait, there's more. The prophecy didn't just drop a name and walk away. To make the prediction even more specific, even more undeniable, Zechariah gives a whole detailed profile of the man who would carry this name, Yeshua.
Zechariah layered in these incredible details. He said this figure, the branch, would uniquely be both a priest and a king ruling from a single throne. Now that was unheard of in Israel, because the priests and the kings came from completely different tribes. He also said this man would build the temple of the Lord.
So that raises a question, right? How could the Messiah possibly be a priest if he was from David's royal line, not the priestly line of Levi? Well, another ancient prophecy, this one from Psalm 110, gives us the answer. It says the Messiah would be made a priest by a special divine decree, just like that mysterious ancient king-priest, Melchizedek.
Okay, but that brings up another puzzle. Other prophecies clearly said the Messiah would come to the temple in Jerusalem, which was already standing there. So how could he both come to the temple and also be the one who builds it. It seems like a contradiction.
Well, the source material offers a really profound answer. He wasn't talking about a temple made of stone. When Jesus said, "Destroy this temple, and I will raise it again in 3 days," the texts argue he was actually talking about his own body. His resurrection would create a new kind of temple, a living one, the community of believers.
So, when you put it all together, when you take the messianic title, the branch, and you add the impossible dual role of a priest-king, the building of a new spiritual temple, and, most incredibly of all, the actual name of the man at the center of the prophecy, Yeshua, you get this stunningly clear picture that points to just one person.
And all of this leaves us with a really provocative final thought. I mean, if a clue as specific as a name could lie hidden in a text for 2,500 years, just waiting, what other secrets, what other ancient predictions are still out there, waiting for someone to just look closely enough to find them?